Avery Allen shoved her ticket into her back pocket with one hand while balancing her overpriced soda and popcorn in the other, scanning the row of velvet red seats at the sold-out acoustic charity concert downtown. "Excuse me. Sorry. Sorry, just squeezing by," she whispered, awkwardly stepping over knees and bags until she reached seat F12. She plopped down with a relieved sigh, not noticing the sharp glance from the man returning from the aisle. "That's my seat." She looked up and nearly choked on her popcorn. The man standing in front of her was tall, broad-shouldered, and looked like he belonged in a GQ cover shoot rather than a small acoustic concert at the Paramount Theater. His black button-down hugged his chest in a way that made her forget what words were. "Oh my God," she said, eyes widening. "You're absolutely right. I'm so sorry, I thought this was F12. But I think—" She yanked the crumpled ticket from her back pocket. "Oh wow, I'm F11. I'm literally one seat off." The man's expression softened, his deep voice smooth. "You're fine." "It happens." She stood up quickly, nearly knocking over her drink. "I swear I'm not that person. The kind who steals seats." He let out a quiet chuckle, stepping aside so she could slide into the correct seat. "Don't worry, seat stealer. I'll let it slide this time." She turned to him, cheeks burning. "Avery, not seat stealer." His lips twitched. "Maddox Fletcher." She blinked. "Your name sounds expensive." He laughed, low and warm. "It can be." She didn't know what that meant, but she laughed anyway, settling into her seat, trying not to feel too self-conscious. Her hair was in a messy bun, she was wearing jeans and an old hoodie, and she was 98% sure she had popcorn salt on her chin. But Maddox? He looked like he belonged in a private box, not general seating. The lights dimmed and the first chords echoed through the theater. Avery tried to focus on the stage, but she kept noticing Maddox from the corner of her eye. He didn't check his phone once. He closed his eyes during slower songs, his fingers tapping gently against his jeans like he was feeling every note. An hour in, during a quiet acoustic cover of a Fleetwood Mac song, their arms brushed. Avery stiffened. Maddox didn't move. Her heart thudded. She didn't know why. Maybe it was the way he'd said her name. Maybe it was the way he didn't flinch or apologize. Or maybe it was the way her skin still tingled. When the concert ended, the audience erupted in applause. Maddox stood, clapping too, and turned to her. "You're clearly a music person," he said. "I'm clearly a buy a ticket last minute and steal someone's seat person," she joked. "Let me guess. You were here for the music." "Or the popcorn." She grinned. "Definitely the popcorn." He smiled. "Want to get a real one? Not from a vending machine." She blinked. "Wait. Are you asking me out for popcorn?" "I'm asking you out for dinner," he said plainly. "Unless you're busy. Or allergic to men with good taste in music." Avery hesitated. "Are you always this forward?" "Only when I meet someone who grabs the wrong seat and somehow makes it the best part of my night." She stared at him. "Is that line always this effective?" He shook his head. "Nope. First time I've used it." She bit her lip. "Okay, dinner. But I'm not letting you pay for everything." He raised a brow. "We'll see." They walked together through the lobby out into the cool night air. He opened the door of a sleek black car parked right out front, definitely not a ride share. "You drove?" she asked, surprised. "I don't like waiting around." Inside, the car smelled expensive. Leather, cedar, something subtle but rich. "So what do you do, Maddox Fletcher?" she asked as he pulled into traffic. "I invest." "In what?" "People. Companies. Things I believe in." "That's vague." He glanced at her. "You're not used to vague?" "I work in marketing. Everyone's vague. I'm just trying to figure out if you're a hedge fund guy or a Bond villain." He chuckled. "Nothing that dramatic." They pulled up in front of a restaurant that made her blink twice. Golden lighting. Valet. People in suits. "This place," she whispered. "Maddox, this place has great popcorn. Come on." Inside, everything sparkled. Crystal chandeliers. Polished wood. Waiters in black suits. A hostess greeted Maddox by name and led them to a private table near a corner window. Avery leaned in. "Okay. How regular are you here? He smiled. Regular enough that they know I don't like sitting near the kitchen. She narrowed her eyes. You're not just a regular guy, are you? He shrugged. Depends on what you mean. Most regular guys don't drive luxury cars, get seated without reservations, and casually suggest five-star restaurants like their diners. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he poured her a glass of wine. I'm not trying to impress you, Avery. You don't have to. I'm already impressed. And suspicious. He set the bottle down. I run several investment firms. I also own a few properties. Technically, yes, I'm a millionaire. Avery blinked. Okay. Wow. That's unexpected. Does that change anything? She looked at him. No, but it explains a lot. They talked through dinner. About music. Her job. His travels. Her little apartment in the city. His place somewhere high up. By dessert. She was laughing so hard she had to set down her fork. I haven't had this much fun in forever, she said, wiping her eyes. Then let's not make it a one-time thing. You're serious? He nodded. I haven't met anyone like you before. She stared at him. Her heart did something stupid in her chest. Outside, the valet brought his car around. He opened the door for her again, and when she slid in, she realized she didn't want the night to end. Can I see you again? He asked as he drove. You want to? I already do. She looked over at him. Okay. He dropped her off in front of her building, but before she got out, she turned to him. Thanks for the popcorn. He smiled. Thanks for stealing my seat. As she walked inside, she didn't know what was happening, but something told her it was just beginning. Avery's phone buzzed against her desk, jolting her out of her spreadsheet haze. She pushed her half-eaten protein bar aside, glancing around the open office before discreetly picking up the call. Hello. I was starting to think you gave me a fake number, Maddox said, his voice smooth as ever, even over a poor signal. Avery leaned back in her chair. And I was starting to think you were just a really convincing hallucination. Are you free tonight? She blinked at her monitor. You mean like tonight? Unless you're booked solid with spreadsheets and fluorescent lights. I'm in the middle of a quarterly campaign review, she said, glancing at her color-coded notes. But I could probably be persuaded to abandon corporate responsibility for something more exciting. I'll send a car. I can meet you somewhere. I insist. She hesitated. Is this going to be another one of those places where I feel like I need to apologize to the silverware? I think you'll like this one, he said. I know a place that serves the best grilled cheese in the city. She laughed. Are you serious? Deadly. The car arrived outside her building just after 6, gleaming under the amber streetlights. The driver opened the door without a word. Avery slid in, smoothing down her navy dress. She told herself not to overthink it, but her stomach still flipped when she saw Maddox waiting on the sidewalk in a slate gray jacket and jeans that somehow looked tailored. You really meant grilled cheese? She asked as she stepped out. He gestured to the cozy bistro behind him. Only the finest. Inside, the space was warm and intimate, filled with the smell of toasted bread and melted cheese. The walls were covered with mismatched art and a jazz trio played in the corner. Maddox led her to a booth near the back. You know, she said, sliding in across from him, I didn't think you were the kind of guy who knew where to find comfort food. I'm not. This was a recommendation from someone who thinks I need to take myself less seriously. She raised an eyebrow. Are they wrong? He tilted his head. Usually. But not this time. They ordered him the sharp cheddar with truffle oil, her the classic American with tomato soup, and for a few moments they ate in silence, the kind that didn't feel awkward. Why do I get the feeling you're not used to this? She asked finally. What's this? Low-lit booths. Casual food. No one hovering. No one calling you, sir. He looked at her for a moment. Because you're right. I'm not. She swirled her soup with her spoon. So why now? Because you're not like anyone I usually spend time with. She leaned back, crossing her arms. Is that supposed to be a compliment or a warning? A compliment, he said. You don't care about any of the things people usually care about around me. Avery hesitated. What do people usually care about? He studied her. Status. Money. What I can do for them. She met his gaze. And you think I don't? I know you don't. She didn't respond right away. Instead, she dipped her sandwich into the soup and took a thoughtful bite. I grew up in a house where the electricity got shut off more often than not, she said finally. I care about money. Just not yours. He nodded slowly. That's fair. She wiped her fingers on her napkin. And for the record, I'm not intimidated by your lifestyle. I just don't want to be swallowed by it. That's not what I want. Good, she said. Because I have no interest in becoming someone's accessory. Maddox smiled, but it wasn't polished or practiced. It was quiet. Real. Has anyone ever told you you're difficult? Only everyone who's ever dated me, she said, grinning. Then they weren't paying attention. After dinner, they walked along the waterfront, the city lights reflecting off the river beside them. Avery pulled her coat tighter around herself and Maddox fell into step beside her, his hands in his pockets. You still haven't told me what you actually do, she said. I told you. I invest. In what, exactly? This week, he said, glancing at her. A startup that's trying to make biodegradable packaging for high-end cosmetics. And a company designing AI for surgical procedures. She blinked. So, you're basically a genius with a checkbook. Just someone who's good at spotting potential. She glanced at him. Is that what you're doing with me? He stopped walking. No, she turned to face him. I'm not investing in you, he said. I'm choosing to spend time with you. Avery felt something shift in her chest. That's unexpectedly normal. Is that a problem? No, she said quietly. It's actually kind of nice. They stood there in silence, the city humming around them. A gust of wind swept past, and she shivered. He shrugged off his jacket and draped it around her shoulders without asking. You didn't have to do that. I know. She pulled it tighter, surrounded by the scent of his cologne, something expensive and understated. So what happens now, she asked. That depends. On? You. She looked up at him. I'm not interested in being someone's experiment. You're not, he said. You're the first thing that hasn't felt like a calculated move in a long time. Her breath caught. I want to see you again, he said. No pressure. No expectations. She studied him, searching for the catch. But there wasn't one. Okay, she said quietly. I'd like that. As he walked her to the car, she realized something she hadn't allowed herself to consider until now. He wasn't just charming. Or rich. Or surprisingly human. He was dangerous. Because he made her want more. Avery pressed her thumb against the fingerprint scanner and waited for her office door to unlock. The soft click echoed in the quiet hallway, but her mind wasn't on the client pitch she was supposed to be preparing. It had been 2 weeks since that night with Maddox, the grilled cheese, the river walk, the way he looked at her like she was the only person in a city of millions. And he kept showing up. Not in the cliché way. No flowers on her desk. No dramatic gestures at her office. He called her personally when he wanted to see her and always asked, never assumed. They'd gone to an off-Broadway show, strolled through an art gallery he claimed he'd never had the time to visit until her, and once they'd stayed in, ordering ramen and watching foreign films with subtitles. It was the in-between moments that kept her up at night. The way he paid attention. How he always remembered exactly how she liked her tea. The way he listened, not just to her words, but everything in between. She dropped her bag, still wearing her coat, and sat at her desk. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was her boss. Alan, he said as soon as she picked up. Your campaign metrics just walked into the room. She blinked. What? Get to conference room C. Now. She hung up, heart thudding. When she stepped inside, she stopped short. Maddox was standing at the head of the table. He looked out of place in the modern, glass-walled room, too polished, too composed. Her boss, seated to his left, gestured at her. Maddox Fletcher, this is our campaign strategist, Avery Allen. Avery. Maddox is the silent investor behind the Haven Tech partnership. Avery tried not to show any reaction. Her world tilted slightly, but she stepped forward, extending a hand. We've met, Maddox said calmly, shaking her hand. But I didn't realize you were the Alan behind the numbers I've been hearing about. Avery's voice didn't waver. And I didn't realize people investing in things they believe in included my company. Her boss let out a short laugh. Small world, huh? She sat down, carefully keeping her expression even. Maddox didn't look at her again. Not directly. But she could feel his attention, sharp and unwavering. The meeting lasted 40 minutes. Maddox asked measured questions, never interrupting, never overstepping. But every time he spoke, the room listened. When it ended, her boss clapped her on the shoulder. Alan, walk Mr. Fletcher out, would you? She didn't answer, just stood and led Maddox down the hall. They didn't speak until they were alone in the elevator. So, she said, not facing him, that's your secret. I didn't want to influence anything you were doing, he said. I invested before I met you. She nodded, arms crossed. And you didn't think maybe I should know? I didn't want it to change how you saw me. She turned toward him. You keep saying that, but you also keep showing up in my life in ways I don't expect. I didn't plan this, but you didn't stop it either. He stepped closer. I haven't lied to you, Avery. No, she said, brows pulling together. But you've managed to avoid the truth in some very strategic ways. The elevator opened. She walked out first, heading toward the building's glass lobby doors. He followed. I didn't tell you because I liked being just Maddox with you. She stopped, turning around. But you're not just Maddox. You're the man who signs the checks that keep my job afloat. That's not nothing. He ran a hand through his hair. I understand if you're angry. I'm not angry, she said. I'm just trying to figure out if this thing between us was built on something real or if I was just another well-timed investment. His jaw tensed. Don't do that. Do what? Reduce what we've had to a transaction. She looked up at him, eyes sharp. I don't want to. But you don't exactly make it easy. He stepped back. I won't contact you again. Not unless you want me to. She watched him go, the automatic doors sliding open as he stepped into the cold. His figure disappeared into the back seat of a waiting car. No driver got out. No fanfare. Just silence. That night, Avery couldn't sleep. Her apartment was too quiet, her thoughts too loud. She kept replaying every moment, every look, every laugh, every time he'd chosen to be present without asking anything of her. And yet, he had withheld something important. The next morning, she arrived at the office to find an envelope on her desk. No name, just her seat number from the concert F11 written in black ink. Inside was a single concert ticket dated 2 nights from now. Same theater, same artist, same row. She stared at it for a long time. When Friday came, she stood outside the Paramount Theater, ticket in hand. People bustled past her, laughing and chatting, wrapped in scarves and anticipation. She wasn't sure why she'd come, but when she stepped inside, heart pounding, and found her seat F11, she sat down slowly, scanning the crowd. And then she saw him, Maddox, walking down the aisle, stopping at F12. He didn't sit right away, just looked at her. Seat stealer, he said softly. Investor, she replied. He sat down beside her. I didn't know if you'd come. I didn't either. They sat in silence as the lights dimmed. The first chords rang out. This time, when their arms brushed, neither of them moved away. The theater lights dimmed a final time as the encore faded, but neither Avery nor Maddox moved. The hum of applause swelled around them, but their hands remained just barely touching on the armrest, unmoving. It wasn't the music that held her in place, it was the weight of everything unsaid. Outside, the city pressed in with its usual noise and light, but inside that moment, the air between them was still. Maddox turned toward her as the crowd began to rise, his voice low and steady. I didn't come here tonight expecting anything, he said. I only wanted to see if you'd remember. I didn't forget, she replied. I just didn't know if I should come. He held her gaze. And now, I think I would have regretted it if I hadn't. They stepped out of the theater together, walking without speaking through the crowd. A light drizzle misted over the sidewalk, not heavy enough to matter, but enough to blur the reflections in the pavement. Maddox didn't offer to call a car. I want to show you something, he said. Avery hesitated, then nodded. They walked several blocks, the city gradually quieting as they moved away from the theater district. He led her through a side street, then into a building she'd never noticed before, tall, modern, and understated, with no signage. The doorman greeted Maddox with a slight nod. No questions asked. The elevator opened directly into a penthouse. Avery stepped in and stopped cold. The space was wide open, floor-to-ceiling windows revealing a sweeping view of the skyline. The lights of the city glittered like stars across the black glass. The furniture was minimal, but warm, nothing ostentatious, but everything chosen with care. On the far end, a baby grand piano sat beneath a pendant light. I've never brought anyone here, Maddox said as he closed the door behind them. Not even for business. She turned to him slowly. Why now? Because I've spent my whole life protecting things that don't matter. This is the first time something actually does. Avery moved toward the window, her shoes silent against the hardwood. She looked out at the city, then down at the street far below. You said you didn't want to influence how I saw you, she said. But I think you've been doing that since the beginning. I wanted you to see me before you saw all of this. She turned around. And now I want you to see everything. He crossed the room, stopping just in front of her. For the first time since they met, she saw something new in his expression: uncertainty. I don't want to keep my life in compartments anymore, he said. You're the only person who makes me want to let the walls down. Avery searched his face. I don't need any of this. I know. I don't need the view or the car or the penthouse. I know that too. But I do need honesty. I need to know that if I walk into this with you, I'm not going to be treated like a guest in someone else's world. You won't be, he said. I don't want you on the outside of anything. I want you here, with me. She looked around the space again. This place doesn't feel cold. I thought it would. He stepped closer. It never felt like anything until now. Avery lowered her voice. You're not what I expected. I'm not always proud of who I've been, he admitted. But I'm proud of this moment. Of you. She felt her breath catch. I want to build something with you, he continued. Not just dates and dinners. I want mornings and arguments and figuring things out when it's hard. I want to know what your worst day looks like, not just your best. Avery stared at him, heart pounding, every instinct screaming that this wasn't what she knew. This wasn't safe or predictable. But it was real. I don't want something perfect, she said. I just want something true. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, folded piece of paper. Without a word, he handed it to her. She unfolded it slowly. It was the original seating chart from the concert where they'd met. Her seat F11 was circled. Next to it, in handwriting she didn't recognize, were the words, "Keep this spot open." She looked up at him, stunned. I asked them to reserve it for every performance I attend, Maddox said, in case you ever showed up again. Her throat tightened. You kept it. I kept everything. She stepped forward, her voice barely above a whisper. You really don't do anything halfway, do you? Not with you. She didn't answer. Instead, she reached for his hand, lacing her fingers through his like it was the most natural thing in the world. I don't know where this goes, she said, but I want to find out. His eyes softened. Then let's find out together. Weeks passed, and then months. Avery didn't become someone else. She still worked late sometimes. She still got overwhelmed by crowded rooms. But Maddox never asked her to be anything she wasn't. Instead, he made space for her. In his life, in his home, in every decision. He started moving meetings around to have breakfast with her. She started learning the names of his board members and surprising him with insights. He introduced her to people who tried too hard, but she never flinched. She met his mother in a quiet cafe 2 towns over, and when the woman smiled gently and said, "I've never seen him look at anyone like that," Avery knew she was exactly where she was supposed to be. And one afternoon, she walked into the theater, the same one where it had all started, to find it empty. She turned, confused. Maddox stood at the foot of the stage, hands in his pockets. "What is this?" she asked, stepping forward. "I rented it for the afternoon," he said. "I wanted to ask you something." She raised an eyebrow. "Here." He nodded. "I figured it was poetic." He walked up the steps to the stage and turned, looking down at her from the same spot the singer had stood months ago. "Avery Allen," he said, voice steady, "you changed everything about the way I see the world. You walked into my life by accident and made it feel intentional. You reminded me what it's like to be known." She stepped closer, heart pounding. "I love you," he said. "Not because you fit into my life, but because you made me want to make space for something better. I don't want to build a future that doesn't have you in it." He pulled a small velvet box from his jacket and opened it. "Marry me." She stared at him, tears in her eyes. "Are you seriously proposing to me on the same stage where I accidentally stole your seat? I figured if I owed you my heart, I might as well give it to you where it started." She laughed, one hand covering her mouth. Then she climbed the steps and stood in front of him. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, you ridiculous, impossible man." He kissed her, and the lights rose slowly behind them, casting the stage in a warm glow. And for the first time, Avery realized she hadn't just walked into someone else's story. She'd found her own. The wedding was small, but nothing about it felt simple. It wasn't held in a cathedral or a ballroom, but on the rooftop of the same building where Maddox had first shown Avery the city through his eyes. Twilight poured gold over the skyline, and soft string music floated in the air. The ceremony had no pomp, no unnecessary spectacle, just a quiet elegance that matched the 2 people standing beneath the arch of white jasmine and ivy. Avery wore a gown that shimmered subtly with movement, the neckline dipped low in the back, just enough to feel daring. Her bouquet was wild and asymmetrical, filled with blooms that didn't match but somehow belonged together. She held it in one hand, her other tucked into Maddox's as they stood before the officiant. Maddox wore a crisp navy suit with no tie, his shirt collar open, the top button undone. His eyes never left Avery's, not while they exchanged vows, not during the rings, and not during the quiet, trembling pause before the kiss that sealed everything. When they turned to face the small gathering of people, his mother, her sister, 2 colleagues they trusted, and no more than 10 friends between them, Avery felt something unfamiliar but deeply welcome settle over her. Peace. Later, when the rooftop was strung with warm lights and the dinner was served family-style under the stars, Maddox leaned close to her ear as they sat at the long wooden table. "Do you remember the night I told you I wanted mornings with you?" he asked. "I remember everything you told me that night," she replied. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a single silver key. "What's this?" she asked, turning it over in her palm. "The front door. To the brownstone I bought last week." She blinked. "You bought a house?" "Our house," he corrected. "It's in Brooklyn Heights. Needs some work. The kitchen's ancient, but the light's good. And there's space." "Space for what?" "For the big things. The ones we haven't said out loud yet." She looked at him, the soft curve of a smile forming. Like Sunday mornings with burnt pancakes. Like a room we don't use yet but hope to. Like a garden you'll probably forget to water." "I make no promises," she teased, then grew serious. "You're sure?" "I'm not interested in living anywhere that doesn't have your shoes by the front door." Avery slipped the key into her dress pocket and leaned into him. "I never thought I'd be the person who gets this," she said quietly. "Not the love, not the home, not the future." "You didn't get it," he said. "You built it. Every choice you made brought us here." The sound of jazz began to play from the corner where a 3-piece band had set up. Maddox stood and extended a hand. "Dance with me." She took it, letting him lead her to the patch of rooftop cleared for dancing. As they swayed together under the lights, The city stretched endless in every direction. But for once, neither of them felt small inside it. "You know what I love most about you?" Avery asked, her voice just above a whisper. "Besides my grilled cheese taste?" he teased. She poked him gently in the chest. "You never asked me to change. Not once. You just made room." He rested his forehead against hers. "You never needed changing. You just needed someone who saw you clearly." The next morning, they woke late, still tangled in sheets and laughter. Sunlight streamed in through floor-length windows, catching on the 2 champagne glasses abandoned on the nightstand. Maddox reached over and brushed the hair from her cheek. "What's your plan today, Mrs. Fletcher?" he asked. She stretched, the sheet slipping down one bare shoulder. "I was thinking we'd go see this mysterious brownstone of ours." "I was thinking the same. There's something I want to show you." 2 hours later, still in jeans and sneakers, they stood inside the dusty, sun-drenched foyer of the house. The air smelled faintly of old wood and possibility. Maddox led her upstairs, past rooms with high ceilings and creaky floors, until they reached a small room at the end of the hall. He pushed the door open. There wasn't much, just a fresh coat of pale blue paint and a rocking chair near the window. But on the windowsill sat a tiny stuffed elephant. Avery stared at it. "You painted this?" "I had it done last week." She stepped into the room, her hand over her belly. "Maddox, I figured we'd need it sooner than later." Tears welled in her eyes. "You already knew?" "I guessed. You've been eating pickles and peanut butter for 3 days." She laughed through the tears, turning to face him. "I was going to tell you at brunch." He wrapped his arms around her from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. "You just did." And in that moment, in a paint-scented nursery in a house that still needed work, with a man who had quietly made space for every version of her, Avery knew she had everything she'd never dared to ask for. Not just love, not just home, but a life that was fully hers. Together, they stood in the room, the future stretching out in front of them, not as a question but as a promise.